Hi, it's Alistair at Electric Scotland. This is my introduction to my weekly newsletter for January the 11th, 2019. Without further ado, we'll start you off on the news items I found for you this week. First story is a poll's been taken. 57% of Conservative members now back a no-deal Brexit. Says Theresa May's bid to get Tory MPs to back her Brexit plan suffered a setback, as a new poll suggested more than half of Conservative Party members prefer a no-deal withdrawal. Next story is Arctic explorers retrace the footsteps of controversial Orkney hero John Ray. Says David Reed is heading the four-man 2019 Arctic return expedition, which will set out in March from Nugent, which is Repulse Bay in the central Canadian Arctic, on a 400-mile journey across the Boothia Peninsula. It's following the route taken in 1854 by Dr. John Ray and his indigenous companions. Next story is this year's Celtic connections to be the most diverse and eclectic yet. Says Scotsman folk critic Jim Gilchrist looks forward to the largest winter festival of its kind. Then Trump administration downgrades the EU mission to US. Says the Trump administration has downgraded the diplomatic status of the European Union's delegation to the United States. An EU official has confirmed to DW. The demotion happened at the end of last year without notice. The next story is no deal means cashing in, not crashing out. It says 6 out of the EU's top 10 trading partners trade under WTO rules. Then we've got teaching young people cooking skills will help to beat society's ills. It says there are still a few home economic teachers who, like me, has spent a long working life struggling with what is meant by home economics. That's particularly interesting. I remember Jamie Oliver in the States. He went to this area that was meant to be the most beasts, and he went to one class, and I remember not one kid in that class could identify any vegetable he showed them. It's appalling, really. Okay, should Sturgeon face a vote of no confidence? I have to say I can't recollect ever having a vote of no confidence in the Scottish Parliament before, so this might be interesting. It smacks of the Yes Minister when the response to a scandal breaking is to order a full and far-reaching internal inquiry into an embarrassing matter. That we have no deal Brexit is the best deal for Britain, as we can lead the world without fear. There is so much to be optimistic about. We've nothing to fear from a no deal Brexit, writes Sir Rocco Forte. He's the guy that runs Forte's Hotels. Then I have one, trading under WTO rules. There's a lot of confusion and deliberate misinformation about trading under the WTO. Here are some facts that might help. Then we have Tory MP Nick Boles is facing deselection over support for a softer Brexit deal. Says the MP said that he had already received death threats over his decision to support an amendment designed to block a no-deal Brexit. In actual fact, there should be more of this going on in the country as a whole. I mean, if you don't like what your MP is doing, they should be deselected, at the end of the day. So, but we don't seem to want to get involved in that kind of discussion. But, I mean, again, if I can only remind people that when it comes to Brexit, the majority voted to leave, and in both Labour and Conservative manifestos, they both said we would leave the EU, we would leave the single market, leave the common market, and come out from under the auspices of the ECJ. And yet there's so many members of Parliament that are not going against that. So they should be deselected and held to account. But unless we do it, us meaning the people, they're getting away with it. It's appalling, really. Okay, Scottish Gin Society unveil amazing Scottish gin map, and it's free. So the Scottish Gin Society have unveiled a new Scottish gin map that shows every gin distillery in Scotland, and best of all, it's free to download. Then I have a Canadian one, Justin Trudeau's Lafar Curve lesson. A higher top rate of tax has made the Canadian private sector smaller and the country less competitive. And then the final story is John Bercow has abandoned objectivity on Brexit. Generally, respect for the Speaker grows the longer they're in the chair, but not so with Bercow. It's a CapEx article, that. Okay, so these are the stories I chose for you this week. Under Electric Canadian, we finished the Canadian Horticulturalist because I gave you 10 volumes of that. So that's it for now. I think there's more available on the Internet Archive if you want to search for them. We've got Canadian Archive reports. I've added the 1890 report. The Canadian Annual Review of Public Affairs. I'll give you the 1913 report this issue. And Canadian Fisherman, I've given you volume 5 to read. Then I got an interesting article, The Massacre at the Cedars. This kind of shows how misinformation was rife in the War of Independence in the US. It's really an interesting article, and I'd certainly recommend you have a wee read at it. It's not terribly long. I think it's 46 pages, something like that. And then I did some work on multi-ethnic Canada, because I was trying to, as you remember, I used to do like Irish in Canada, the Italians in Canada, and so forth. Well, I did a wee review of what I've already got up and found that some of the videos I put up had disappeared, and some of the information I had wasn't really good enough. So I spent a little bit of time on it, and so I worked on the Irish, the Italians, the Iranians, and the Ukrainians. And so I've done quite a good job, I think, on some of that. Okay, then on to Electric Scotland. Rambles in the Far North is the first book I have for you. It's by R. Menzies Ferguson. It's the second edition, published in 1884. So usually when he goes to the second edition, that means it's been very successful. So hope you enjoy reading that. Then I put extra volumes up of the Scottish Review, value volumes 2, 4, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12. So tons to read there. Then I worked on Orkney Culture. It's updated the videos on our Orkney page, as a 3-part one is no longer available. So it's been removed and a video on Orkney Culture has been added. Also Scottish videos. I found public archive videos which are now permanently available, unlike YouTube where they can vanish. I still say YouTube need to do something better. That if they're taking it down, they should track if someone's actually copied it to the site, and if they take it down they should email people, tell them that it's gone. But although, as a tip, I would say that if a video disappears, usually I put the title of the video above the actual video. So if it has gone and you do a search, it's possible you could find it again. So it's worth looking, certainly. Anyway, I found quite a few videos which are quite good. For example, the history of Scotland. If I remember rightly, I think it was an 8-volume series, but on the Public Archive got the first 5 parts of that 8-part series. So that's now up and it's permanent. And I found some other good wee videos. If you go to that page, I think you'll enjoy some of it there. And I've also got a movie up, a 2-hour one. So I hope you enjoy all that. A History of the Scottish Borders Militia is another book I have for you. It's compiled from authentic sources by the Reverend Robert W. Weir in 1877. And then I have a video for you, a new 10-acre farm. It's how we built a 10-acre homestead in a year from scratch. I put it up in our community because you might want to comment on stuff on there. So it's, I don't know, I find it kind of interesting. You got rabbits, chickens, cattle, sheep, pigs, and also got a whole ton of vegetables and fruit and herbs and all kinds of things. So it's quite fascinating. I might add that if you're looking to do any homesteading work, there is a link that I put that you can actually download. I think it's a 10-part course on how to design and build a farm from scratch. So you might like to follow that up as well. Okay, I've got an account of the Scottish regiments. It's from 1808 to March 1861. Quite fascinating. It's actually got quite a lot of accounts of Scots in what has become the English army as well, because apparently some of the English regiments were started as Scots regiments but became English eventually. So some interesting information there I found. I've got poems of Ian Myers up. I've got in 3 of his poems which you can read at, and basically it's from his book, which is available on Kindle, Amazon Kindle. So if you like the poems and want to read his book, including those poems, then you can go to the Kindle and just search for the book. Okay, Biographical Dictionary of Eminent Scotsmen. I've actually got up the first 5 volumes that were done by Robert Chalmers. He originally did a 4-volume set, but then he did a 5th one. But I've since found that there's actually 9 volumes in total, because the guy Thomas Thompson brought it more up to date, because apparently the publishers of it decided that after Chambers had finished, with an awful lot of quite notable Scots died after that, and they wanted to try to bring it a bit more up to date. So this is the full 9 volumes. I will say it took me a lot of time to get these 9 volumes together, because the on the Internet Archive it's not clear which volume is which, and some of the volumes that I picked were actually not that brilliant, because I don't know, they seem to miss pages, and there were some, like you started off at page 5 and went to 30 and then suddenly went to 137 to 416, then it suddenly went back to, I mean, it's been badly compiled. But the thing is that if you read a biography, the full biography is there and it's a good read, but to actually read them in context is difficult. And I had to go through a whole pile of the various copies they've got to try to get the full set. I think I managed it, however. I have triple checked it, and I think I'm 100% certain I've got the full 9 volumes. So hope you enjoy a wee look at that. I've also put up the Imperial Gazetteer of Scotland. This is actually a 2-volume publication. It was done by the Reverend John Marius Wilson. And that's it basically, apart from the fact I've given you a huge story to read. It's the Scottish Governing House, the Arniston Memoirs. Basically this was taken from the Edinburgh Review. It was a massive review of the volume. And I also have a copy of the volume, so when you've read the whole story, which frankly I think is fascinating really, it's basically the Dundas family. They were the leading lawyers in Scotland during a period of a lot going on in the world essentially, and this was all written up from the charter chest, bearing in mind that the charter chest was just lying loose in a room in the house, and it wasn't kept in any decent condition, and there's a huge amount of work went through it all to get it into an organisation. And so from there they've given you a great history of the Arniston house and the family, but also one of the major players. They got a whole ton of information about him, but because a lot of it wasn't to do with the house as such, they thought they'd hold it back, and they produced a completely separate biography of the one individual. Now when you go to the page that I give you as a link from that, you'll be able to read that book as well. So if you're in the Dundas family, tons to read. So it's huge, and it gives you an impression of what historians have to go through to write up a decent kind of history. So I hope you've hope you will enjoy that story. I say it's pretty big. It's about I think it's about 2/3 of that. Actually, so it's almost 3/4 of the total newsletter. So it's a big story. Okay, so that's it for this week. Apart from the fact that I've also given you a link to 30 truths, you might say, about working under WTO. It's a PDF file. So I thought it might be interesting. That came about because I was talking to 2 local Scots last week, both of which were very confused on Brexit, didn't know whether it was good, bad, or what it was. So I gave them a bit of my view on it, and I also sent them this link to this PDF file, which just came out very recently, I might add, but I think it answers a lot of the questions that they had. So if you're not too sure about Brexit one way or another, I would recommend you read that if you don't read anything else. Okay, so anyway, here we go. That's it for this week. So as always, I'll put a link under this video to the actual newsletter, so you can get all the links to all the stories I provided, and hope you find something in there that's going to interest you. Okay, wishing you all a good weekend when it comes. Take care. Bye bye.